Good evening and welcome to Basketbros. I'm your host, Denzel Snipes, and we've got a great show for you. It's another Sunday, so spend the first part of your Sunday evening with your one and only Basketbros. Let's see, we are coming to you live from currently Sideline Sports on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, DBTV, and Stream TV. Um, Also, make sure hit that like and subscribe button on Sideline Sports Network on YouTube because we got a lot of great content. It's not just us. It's the Gauntlet. We had a great episode just this past Friday, so you can go on there and see that as well. Also, there's Punit, which comes on Wednesdays. Punit Views, which comes on Mondays. And then there's also Rushing Back with Kobe White, the Sideline Sports Show. Version 56, you name it, we got it. And then also on Stream TV, we have replays all week long on Stream TV on Sideline Sports. We have Sideline Sports Network shows as well as Let's Talk Sports shows. So from our sister network over there on the Let's Talk Sports side. But most definitely follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and then check in DBTV and Stream TV for awesome content. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get the crew in here. Shout out to Will Vogel and excuse me, Scott Wogenroth, who took the night off to spend some time with some loved ones. So, have fun. We're gonna hold it down back here. We got a great episode. Let's go ahead and bring in Jacob Christner, George Eichorn. Let's go. How you brothers feeling?
Not bad at all. How are you doing? Wesley's brother from another mother, only without the tax problems.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, I hear you. And it looks like you're growing Razor's beard from 1995.
Oh, no. This is going on. I wish I could do this full time. I wish, but it's gone tomorrow. It's just too sharp.
Too short. Well, if you grow it like this, you wouldn't have that problem.
Except I try. I try every way. This is 4 days worth. It hurts after a point.
That's 4 days?
Yes.
Shoot, that's 2 hours for me.
Oh, you're trying to play competition, are you?
How you doing, George?
I'm doing well, thank you. In the Motor City, here we are, and ready to go at it, guys, with a great show, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and kick it off with a Detroit legend himself, and that is our Basketbros legend guard, Joe Dumars. Joe Dumars was chosen in the NBA draft in 1985. He was the 18th pick overall, first round pick 18. He played.
Didn't we have the beginning? Don't we have beginning points also? I just was curious. I thought we did the beginning and then the party shots.
No, not for Basketbros. You're thinking pundit.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry about that.
Are you good? Well, anyway, he played both 1 and 2 guard. And let's see, he played his entire career with the Detroit Pistons. He's a 2-time NBA champion, Finals Most Valuable Player, 6-time NBA All-Star, All-NBA Second Team, 2-time All-NBA Third Team, 4-time NBA All-Defensive First Team, All-NBA Defensive Second Team. He was an All-Rookie First Team. He also won the NBA Sportsmanship Award, the J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award. Detroit Pistons number 4, retired. In college, he was the Southland Player of the Year out of McNeese State, 4-time First Team All-Southland. McNeese State Cowboys number 4, retired. As an executive, he was the NBA champion in 2004 and Executive of the Year in 2003. Career stats. He averaged 16.1 points per game, 2.2 rebounds per game, 4.5 assists per game. He's in the College Basketball Hall of Fame and in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, both as a player. These two were, when you think of Joe Dumars, you think of him and Thomas as quite possibly the most dangerous backcourt of the 1980s. Also, keep in mind, he played an integral part in what was known as, and I'm sure you'll expound on this one, George, the Jordan rules, which actually was a strategy concocted by Coach Chuck Daly to limit Michael Jordan's effectiveness, and what led to several playoff series wins versus the Bulls in the 1980s. I mean, when you think of McCollum's on the He's on the Pelicans now, and but when he was in Portland, and it was Dame and McCollum, and then of course you got the backcourt of Steph and Clay out in Golden State. But those are offensive backcourts. Even in a defensive sense, defensive backcourts, like I said, these two may have been the most dangerous of the 1980s, But it is Joe Dumars, most definitely a Motor City legend. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's in 2 different Hall of Fames, so he's some type of legend elsewhere too. But I want to start off with our guest, George Eichorn, and I know you had a lot of fun covering this man. I know you got some stories, and of course, being a fan of the Pistons themselves, your thoughts on guard Joe Dumars.
Yeah, Denz, you certainly highlighted his great career. I mean, I know we're talking legends. Sometimes he gets overlooked sometimes, obviously playing next to Isaiah. And let's face it, Isaiah ran that team, obviously, with Chuck Daly, of course, the coach. And Joe was kind of the quiet man, the quiet assassin. When they needed something done, man, Joe Dumars, you would turn to Joe to get it done on the court. And then off the court, being the fact that he was in the shadow of Isaiah and Bill Laimbeer and guys like that, Joe was looked upon by a lot of his teammates too. You had Buddha Edwards, you had John Sally, you had Dennis Rodman on that team, and a lot of guys, Mahorn, a lot of guys would go and seek advice, not only from Isaiah, but from Joe as well. Just a terrific person, a terrific community-minded guy. You mentioned about his defensive ability, 4 times first team all defense in the NBA. The guys today we know are so few and far between play any kind of defense. So it was really refreshing to have that Pistons team be as the bad boys. And as you said, take advantage of so-called Jordan rules back then and trying to bring the winning championship basketball, which they did to Detroit. And then obviously he was promoted up to the front office. Now, that's another story in itself, guys, because, Isaiah was the self-appointed adopted son. I'm not sharing anything I don't think people know from owner Bill Davidson. All along, everybody thought that Isaiah was going to run the front office when he retired. And lo and behold, there was a falling out between Isaiah and Mr. Davidson. And so that never happened. Isaiah was kind of ushered out of town. And Joe Dumars, lo and behold, ran the team for 13 seasons, both with Mr. Davidson and then with his wife when Karen took over the team after Bill Davidson passed away. So, yeah, he won the one championship in 2004, as you guys know, with Chauncey and Rip and that great team, Rasheed Wallace. But other than that, things started going a little bit sour at the end between he and the Pistons. They really weren't doing much of anything. They're falling apart as far as on-court performance goes. And he was going through coaches left and right. So the end of the stream wasn't too good for Joe, but he's landed himself a really nice job in the NBA. They named the Walter Kennedy Award you mentioned, Denz, that he won. It's now a Joe Dumars Award, and he's highly regarded in the NBA. Obviously has a lot on his plate with taking care of operations and suspensions and things like that. But I'm telling you, he played in the shadow, but boy, oh boy, he was a great guy to interview, a great guy to cover, and a wonderful addition that the Pistons really needed. He complimented that team tremendously.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The essential piece of the bad boys era, the rough and tough, knock you down type defense. And like you said it, in an era today where they're playing little to no defense, it's a miracle of how they even win Defensive Player of the Year awards. And some people were like, it's almost like the one that wins Defensive Player of the Year was one of 3 or 4 people that played defense, not best defensive, 3 or 4 total in the league. They even played defense. But I want to swing it over to Jacob and give us your thoughts on Joe Dumars and his career.
Defensive Player of the Year right now is kind of the equivalent of Tyler Huntley playing in the Pro Bowl. I mean, it's just the truth with that. I mean, it's like we're going to see the 12th man who got off the bench for 3 minutes playing defense. He's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. But we had one of our people that we know, that one of our guys we know, Ray J, was like laughing a little bit at our choice for Joe Dumars, as we saw on the thing, because we've been having legends. In a way, we kind of ran out of legends, but at the same time, Joe kind of deserves it because he did accept. This was somebody who probably would have been a star in a lot of teams, but he accepted his role with Isaiah. He accepted, that Isaiah was the alpha. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing about this was the fact that we talk about Davidson. What was it, Bill Davidson?
Yeah.
We talk about Bill Davidson. He obviously made the right choice, picking Dumars over Isaiah Thomas, because look what Isaiah Thomas did with the other teams. It's like, it's not the megastar. It's like that is the equivalent of what Ted Williams did as a manager with the Washington Senators. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I remember that
year. And when you are naturally talented, it's hard to coach or get anything like that because you can't exactly tell what you did in the begin with to be able to teach it. It's like, back in my day, I did it this way, but how many have the skills to be you?
True.
The skills to be you. It's like Isaiah was never going to be the front office guy or the good coach or any of that because the skills are already so natural. That happens with exceptions, with maybe an exception or two. That happens with all the natural talents. They can't exactly explain how they did it, how they're able to get to build something. So it's the hard workers, the Steve Kerrs, the Joe Dumars. It's all of them. They're the ones that are successful because they're the hard workers that had to grind. It's just the way it is. And it's like Bill Davidson made the right choice. Even if there was a falling out with Joe Dumars, he's got his ring along with it. So Dumars deserves his thing, and they made the right choice over Isaiah.
Yep, absolutely. And now, quick question before we move on. Where would you rank him and Isaiah Thomas as far as backcourts of the 1980s?
Oh,
I'll let you go first, Jacob.
Well, seeing the thing is, they're right up there because there wasn't a real backcourt in the 80s at all with Jordan. They didn't come till the 90s. Mm-hmm. The Celtics were all Bird and McHale and Parrish. The backcourts weren't the alpha. Ainge and DJ and Ainge were good. They were really nice. They were the ones that got open for a good shot after one of Bird's passes or McHale doing a rare one, because he was the black hole when he went inside. But it's like they were the nice open shot, but they weren't the alphas on that court. So you can't say they got to be up there. Truly, I think. They're not going to be better than Magic and Byron. That not really as far as that, because that was the backcourt then. But top 2 or 3. Yeah. Top 2 or 3, just because the ones I mentioned, one wasn't the backcourt wasn't the alpha of the day, and the other one, Jordan didn't have a second. It's like, and I'm not going to count Scotty till about 1990.
True. No, and that's very fair because as far as the 1980s goes, I know Pippen came along in 87?
He came in 87, but
87.
His first year he could not shoot. Then they were trying to find a role for him. And then all the other years he was getting better and better, but his time came in 90.
Yeah, that was really when he broke loose. Okay, on you, George. Where do you rank Thomas and Dumars?
I'd have to put him right up there, like Jacob said. I'd put him behind the Lakers because for all the good mentions that you gave, Jacob, the alpha was not the guard like it was in Detroit with Isaiah running the show. It was incredible. The two of them just phenomenal together. Really, when you look at it, and they're I would say number 2, number 3 at the least, and quite a few people I think really were surprised around the NBA. Let's say about what happened in Detroit and how that team was formed, and obviously how great it was for several seasons. And those great rivalries they had. I don't have to tell you, with the Lakers, with Boston, and then finally with Chicago. And they were a great duo. I'd put them right up there.
Oh, absolutely, great take, both men. All right, so moving on to our next topic, and that is our Basketbros moment in time. Bit of a unique one here. So in July of '98, following the Bulls NBA Finals win over the Jazz, Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone have a rematch at WCW NWO Bash at the Beach. So just the year prior, Dennis Rodman had made his appearance in WCW, aligned himself with Hollywood Hulk Hogan, who at the time period was still running wrestling, and and it was a great fit. So they ended up bringing him back, and they actually had an idea for an angle where Karl Malone would align with Diamond Dallas Page, and then the four of them would have a match at Bash at the Beach. Let's see, Rodman and Hogan ended up winning the match against Page and Karl Malone. This was at the time period when they started, and granted, yes, you can stretch it kind of back to the 80s when you had celebrities come in from outside of wrestling, but in the 90s when they kicked up athletes. Lawrence Taylor headlined a WrestleMania. I can't believe I just said that, but it actually happened in 1995. Um, then on top of that, Kevin Green had appeared in WCW alongside Goldberg sometimes. Then Reggie White also appeared in WCW. Goldberg himself, a former NFL player, did. And so it was that attempt to kind of cross over, football, basketball, and whatnot into professional wrestling to branch out more, and it was great. It made a lot of money, so they figured, hey, we struck gold with Rodman. Why not Karl Malone? Crazy part about Karl Malone is he goes about 6'9", about 255. He was about the same size as LeBron. He actually had a pro wrestler's build, and in the ring, he was not bad at all. But it was great, and it stands in history of not just professional wrestling, but sports in general. Once we get over to George, I know you're probably not the biggest pro wrestling fan on the planet, but just wanted to get your thoughts on just the concept of whenever you see like these athletes from other entities, like we've seen Shaq in pro wrestling. You know what I mean? Like these athletes and other entities go and make an appearance in pro wrestling, such as this topic.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan. You're darn right about that. But when I was a kid, boy, I used to love watching wrestling at where the Pistons used to play. It was called Cobo Arena in downtown Detroit, and we had wrestling in Olympia Stadium. Yeah, Dick the Bruiser and Wild Bull Curry, and we had a lot of great guys here in Detroit. But that being said, yeah, it's a fun thing, I thought it was a good thing, a little gimmicky, but Rodman, like you said, he had lined himself with Hulk Hogan, and then Malone was his opponent. I think it was a lot of fun. I did some research. It was played in Cox Arena. I never heard of that, in San Diego. 10,000 and 95 fans on hand, which isn't the biggest crowd, obviously not far from what was capacity, like I said, over in Detroit at Cobo Arena. But that being said, I think it's fun when guys switch over like that. It's happened before. I mean, I could think of some nasty NFL players, guys. I mean, Conrad Dobler and Mike Ditka and Dick Butkus. I mean, we could have had some great wrestling matches if a lot of those mean guys from back in the NFL days made the switch. But no, I've never been mad about it or think it's silly or anything like that. I think it's a good idea. It's the off season for like the NBA when they did this in July of '98, you mentioned. And of course, two great names, I mean, that were involved with the Bulls and the Jazz for the finals that year, that summer, was Malone and Rodman. So I think it was great. I know it's a gimmick, but still, hey, go back to Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King and all that, and Bobby Riggs and Margaret Court. I mean, they had some gimmick in tennis too, although they're both tennis, all three of them are tennis players. But yeah, it's been tradition in America. I think it's a fun thing to do. It was fun to watch.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And considering that it was Diamond Dallas Page who trained Karl Malone, and Malone did not look bad at all in the ring. Actually, Kevin Nash was the one that trained Lawrence Taylor. Steve Mongo McMichael, a part of the '85 Bears, who won a championship with them, and he actually went to WCW. Now, he was not like a one appearance type dude. He was an actual mainstay in WCW. He was a member of the Four Horsemen in the mid 1990s. But yeah, I know you hate McMichael, but
I hate him as a wrestler. I loved him as a talker.
As a talker, yeah, absolutely. Actually, this is a great segue to swing it on over to you and give us your thoughts on this one.
Oh, let me tell you this. I also remember the Jay Leno match.
That was the next month.
I remember the Leno match, and it's like people wonder why. This is the thing. We know Hulk Hogan wasn't the greatest wrestler alive. I'm just saying this. But you want to know why Hulk Hogan was constantly used in this situation? I'll give you an example. Jay Leno puts him in an armbar. He's on this end of the left, on my thing with the hand going left. He's saying they're wondering why Jay Leno, this non-wrestler, is holding his armbar on Hulk Hogan this long. He has him on this end of the deal. All of a sudden, snap, 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 snap. The cameras are going. Comes this way, puts his leg over. Snap, 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 snap. That way, snap, snap, snap. Keep going. It was in all magazines, papers around Japan, everywhere, all over that one armbar made the world. That's why Hulk Hogan is continuously in these things, not necessarily his skills. He was the master of, he was the absolute master of getting press.
Yes.
That's why he was constantly in that. It was like, and it's not even getting himself over. He knew where every camera was and knew where the press was. He knew every little which way. And the press was going to be this fat little comedian getting an armbar on a big muscular guy.
And what are the chances that there's like, I don't know, either a mid-major or a small-time magazine that has a headline like, there's this shot, there's like like a still shot of Jay Leno punching Hogan in the face, and then the headline is like, Hogan punched in face at such and such, and at face value, it's like, who punches Hulk Hogan in the face? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
But to bring that up to now with Rodman and Malone, the thing about this is, and just bringing up Kevin Green real quick, he was the one that should have been long-term in WCW, not McMichael. He was a better wrestler. But the thing about it is just the fact that if Karl Malone had left and gone to WCW early, because remember, he got heat in that match. He took a beating in the match. He got heat and he got to sell. So they literally trusted him to run. It wasn't just Diamond Dallas Page taking it. Karl Malone took about 7 minutes of heat.
Yeah.
He took that. So he was that good. Rodman was that good. With his thing to be the bad guy, to be the heel. So they were just natural athletes, and it worked. And the whole thing got it. And it's like WCW just had that thing whatsoever. And then you had and do you want to know what they missed on? Rodman won the finals. They got the match. They could have had because of how good they were, they could have had the best 2 out of 3, and they could have, Eric Bischoff's a good promoter. They could have promoted the stretch match. Down the stretch, who win a winner take all between singles match at a pay-per-view. It could have been Starrcade, the big.
I actually thought that because the Bulls won the finals, that the match would go to Page and Karl Malone.
Yeah, no, but then you could have had Malone versus Rodman, and that could have been the two. That could have been the stretch.
Oh,
the final one, the winner take all.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the idea of promotion. They missed out on. That's why it was WCW, because Vince would have done that.
Yeah, actually he would have, and which is baffling that Eric Bischoff actually missed on that. I think because he already has set his sights on Jay Leno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was fun. It was fun to be able. Wrestling was fun in the '90s. It really was, and it's like, and part of the reason because there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of rules. And this is what I talk about with woke, and this is what I talk about with everything, and everybody need to know everything online, and then everybody being everyone just being a sport, and you can't say this and do all that. It kills the fun. Yeah, it kills the fun. Everything. It's like it kills conversation too, and it's like we got to get to a point where we start ignoring that, because then we can get back to having a little bit of fun with things. Okay, and then you're offended. Let's talk. You don't want to talk, I'm going to ignore you. We got to get back to that, because we can't get movies without people being offended. We can't get matches without the thing. We can't get the idea, words being said. In the end, we just got to get back to having a little bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great, with going back to the Leno versus, obviously Rodman and Malone. Now, granted, they aren't natural professional wrestlers, but at least on the Rodman and Malone side, they both are athletes, That's why it was more of a shock when it's like, oh, Leno's in there, right? So, it's kind of like, okay, let's take two personalities here at Sideline Sports, right? Dave DeRocha, shout out to him on the Sideline Sports Show, okay? Yeah. Prior offensive lineman for the Seattle Seahawks, guy stands like 6'5", 320, right? If he gets in a ring and he body slams somebody, no, he's not a pro wrestler, but I would expect him to pull that off because he's 6'5", 320. But if George does it,
no, hey, mind you, if George takes off his glasses, it's kind of like Samson with the hair. He's not strong anymore, but with the glasses, he'll take Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
There you go. But here's the thing. I wanted to bring this up when we go to our next segment. I was bringing up how we are thinking too much about woke and about how we offend and the feelings and everything. I'll give you an example. I will say this to you, George, and hopefully Scott's watching. I've been doing some research on what news used to be. So I've been watching a lot of the news. I've been watching the Kennedys of all 3 stations. I'm on ABC right now. Crazy story on that later. Okay. But so we're watching that. You want to know what Kennedy said on the day that he was assassinated? It's like 7, 8 in the morning or something. Their thing. You know what he was saying? I'm sorry that Jacqueline's not here. It takes her a little longer to get prepped, but it's worth it. Everybody laughs. Everything like that. She's better looking than us. In his little twat. Everybody laughed. No one thought about it. He would have got assassinated on the same day. You don't know how those shrews on The View would have brought that up for about 20 minutes of how he was sexist and all that stuff, regardless of everything. You know it would happen. Both of you know that would happen. It's like they would bring up how sexist it was, even if it was and you got to remember the assassination shut down the world for a week.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like that for a week. And yet these shrews would have brought up how sexist that was. And it's like, we've got to ignore things like this. They're jokes. There's life. Or if you don't want to ignore it, start talking and quit griping. That's my point. They would have brought that up instead of the assassination, how devastating the world it was.
Yeah. And you're talking about an event that shut down the world for a week. The last event, and you two maybe help me on this one. I think the next event in history that literally did something like that was 9/11. Mm-hmm. It shut down the world, and literally on every channel. George, you spent how long in TV?
Well, but I got to correct you guys. It did not shut down the NFL. Supposedly,
it didn't shut down the NFL. No.
Supposedly, Robert Kennedy called Pete Rozelle, and Bobby told him that JFK would want the NFL to play. So, surprise, surprise, they played on that Sunday of the funeral weekend, which I was shocked. But you're right. Everything else shut down in America. All the television stations were covering the funeral, 24/7 coverage. It was the event. And you are right. 9/11 would have been the last time something like that happened. But it's funny you mentioned that, Jacob. I'm not kidding you. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was doing my own little research, and I did find that statement that you just said on him. I never heard that statement before from JFK, like you said, at the breakfast that she did not appear at that morning in, I think it was Fort Worth or somewhere. He started the morning in Fort Worth, but they'd be all over that now. That's crazy.
While they would be all over it while he was dead. That's the true part of it, because because we have the internet, we have Twitter all the time, and people have to give their own opinions. It's like, this is why I say we have to ignore these people and can't make to this, and we have to start because we're not going to get our news back until we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
And with and actually. You're right, George, because 9/11, when that happened, they actually delayed play that Sunday. And as a matter of fact, a reminder to everybody at home, 9/11 is the reason why to this day the Super Bowl is played in February. It started at 9/11 because originally the Super Bowl was supposed to be in late January. Because football was basically shut down for a week and they pushed everything a week, it landed the Super Bowl in February. If I'm not mistaken, I think the I think the Raiders Buccaneers one was in January, like the next year, but then from that time period on, it started being played in February. So yes, absolutely. Now, want to move on to our next topic here. All right, so scenario. Without saying Air Jordan, pick an iconic shoe in NBA history. We'll start off with you, George. Go ahead.
How about Kobe? Nike Kobe 2009.
Oh,
yeah.
Good one.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Kobe, God rest his soul. But, man, oh, man, you had to have a pair of those if you wanted to be a cool kid. But, he That was one of the ones that I remember most was the Nike Kobe.
Awesome. And now, question: Have you ever like bought and wore like a player shoe from like any sport?
No, but my research shows me that there was one that would really fit an old timer like me. You'll get a kick out of this, Jacob. It was called the Converse Chuck Taylor.
I was going to mention that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No. It's good. I'm glad you did. Go ahead, George. Go ahead.
No. I said from 1917, All-Star, Chuck Taylor, Converse, Chuck Taylor.
Man,
I have never owned one, but boy, that's the one I would probably fit.
What awesome. Okay, I'll get to that in a minute. Jacob, go ahead, man.
All right, I was going to say Chuck Taylor's, no question. I've got to say Bird Weapons because I owned a pair of those. And I owned a pair when I was a kid, but you know something? You get older. When you're getting older, you also get bigger. Your feet get bigger, and they go out. Guess what? The old school from 1920, born in 1928, dad does pitch. You know, he's just because that's what he also did with board games that we had when we were out of the house. Pitch. That's what they did. Like life was a little different in that mindset. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like, but see, the thing is, I've been trying to find those weapons as an adult most of my time. Last time I saw it was probably about 18 months ago. It was $2,200 on Goat, and they got sliced up quick. I haven't seen them since. But Larry Bird, the weapons are the hardest thing to find you ever seen in your life. But here's another trivia question. You know what the number 2 all-time leading shoe behind Jordans is?
Who's that?
You know? Do you know, George?
What about Moses Malone? Air Force One.
It could be a basketball shoe. Stan Smith.
Stan Smith.
Stan Smith tennis shoe, the white with the green lip.
Oh yeah.
And the green back and the green heel. Simple. It is second all time.
Wow.
And it's second all time. And here's the thing: Steph Curry owns a bunch of them.
Oh really?
Oh man, that's awesome.
That doesn't surprise me.
Curry owns a bunch of them. He loves just the simplicity of the shoe. And it's like, and Stan Smith makes a pile off that shoe. And it's the funniest thing. That bald old mustache guy, you were not going to notice him unless you watch tennis. You're not going to notice him in a grocery store. Just makes piles of money off that little shoe that looks boring compared to the world. And and it just tells you, it just cannot tell.
Yeah.
You can't tell. And the Stan Smith shoe, you get to that right there. Then here's what's funny. Austin Reeves is starting to make money off that shoe from China.
Oh, is he?
He's starting to make money. It's like I think Austin Reeves' deal is why Kyrie Irving made his Chinese deal. You know, he made Chinese deal just with his shoe. I think and Austin Reeves was first. That little, and those are the things. It's like you just cannot tell. I mean, remember, this is such a small world now.
Yeah.
It's such a small world. And it's like everything that I bring up, I want the world to know this. I'm not saying this because I want 1960s back or 70s or 80s. I'm not doing this. I'm saying the things that we talk about can apply today if we do it right. You know, into a fast world, we can apply the basics is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about bringing back the 60s. No way. I'm not talking about turning off the internet. No, how would we get around? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How would we get around if I didn't do? I'm not saying that. I'm saying the basics that we knew can work in that world. I'm not saying that we turn it back. I'm not saying go black and white. I'm saying the basics can work in this world because they work. Because I'll bring this part. I'm giving you an example. We saw in the 80s, we used to make fun of the bodies of the 80s, the people of the 80s. Just go back to high schools and pros of 1960s. They were all muscular. Everything, okay, you can go to everything from Jerry West. You go to Nate Thurman. He was shredded. You can go to Wilt Chamberlain. The 60s, they were shredded. It was the 80s that looked like plumbers. And they looked like that, didn't have a muscle in their body, but maybe as the diet was changed, maybe it was the cocaine. We don't know, but it's like the 60s, they were shredded. And it's like you have to wonder where the diets have gone to everything like that from that time, from the 60s to the 80s, because every one of these kids had complete muscles and they didn't lift a weight. So like I said, if you see muscles like that in the 60s, you can bring that time the basics of that time to now in a faster world. You can bring that at least. But it's like you can bring news, you can bring training methods, you can bring anything. You just got to say for this now, not for then.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually found actually my shoes that I was gonna say a tie. Well, between the three, but the first two being Allen Iverson's, both the questions and the answers, and also especially for their commercials behind it. And so when I was younger, my cousin had this poster up. I believe this was the poster up at our late grandmother's house. And if you all can see, I think the reflection.
I can't see a darn thing.
Hold on, just 1 second. Let me see if I can cut this light out.
We got to get ourselves some technology here.
Let me see. Okay, all right. Now let me see if it can.
It's still very. Do it on an angle.
Dude, that thing's brighter than my future.
There you go. There's a bunch of guys wearing sneakers.
Yeah, there you are.
If you can, I guess kind of identify him. I mean, I looked it up a little late in the ball game, but yeah, who it is it's essentially, Thomas, Johnson, Bird, McHale, and I think it's not Rolando Blackman. That's I think it's actually Mark Aguirre, because he came from Dallas. And
just think of that for a second. Just think of how McHale had to feel. Everybody else was the megastar to get their shoe. McHale gets a shoe.
Yeah. But also to be fair, those were the Converses that were like team color centric. So like, if you got like a Laker one, like, it was white, but it was also purple and yellow. If you got a Celtics one, it was green and white. You know what I mean? I think the Dallas Mavericks one was like green and blue. The
red,
Pistons
white, and blue
one
for the Pistons.
Yeah, red, white, and blue for the Pistons. Yeah. So I think it was less the player, Jacob, and more the team. It was team centric.
Yeah, but
that's why McHale was able to kind of join them on that cover.
Yeah, but McHale got on the poster and he got on the TV ad. That's my point of what I was saying. He got his face straight out there when a Rolando Blackman did not, when a Byron Scott did not, I'm just saying the sidekick on Boston that sounds like a Bird thing. Bird always looked out for his teammates.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Bird always looked out for his teammates. That sounds like a Bird thing. It's like, well, I'm gonna get my teammate on here. It's like because everybody else was on their own.
True. Yeah. True. That is true. Well, on to our next topic here. And this is, as far as the big men in history, Lakers history, NBA history, whichever you want to narrow it down to. But between the two, and it's almost as if, I think if this was a question in the 1990s, it'd be like, well, if you got these two dudes playing a game of one-on-one, who's going to win? And then, of course, today we make things a little bit more complicated. And we say, well, who was more dominant between the two? Wilt Chamberlain or Shaquille O'Neal? George, on you. Who do you got?
Well, you know me. I'm an old timer. So I'm going with Wilt still Chamberlain. 7 times he won the scoring championship, 5 as a Warrior and 2 as a Sixer. I think they both each won 1 NBA championship, which I was surprised. I didn't know that it was that low for each one of them. 1 NBA title for each. 2 for each guy. But I think, again, it's always going to be a discussion of, okay, you're talking about 2 different environments. You're talking about more teams Shaq played against, more travel Shaq had, and, as I said, a bigger NBA as opposed to Wilt. It was a smaller league. But then again, travel wasn't as easy back then either, when they were traveling a lot by train and things like that instead of airplanes. So I'm still a Wilt guy. 100 points in 1 game. Obviously, he had more scoring titles, and I'm leaning towards him. I think he was more dominant. I know Russell was very dominant too in that area. Of course he was, but I'm going to go with Wilt. Although Shaq sure deserves credit. What a hell of a player, and obviously a very ferocious player during his time frame, especially with the Magic and the Lakers. So That's my take on it, guys.
All right, not bad at all. Jacob, on you. Who do you think is was more dominant, Wilt Chamberlain or Shaquille O'Neal?
I gotta say Wilt, but I got a different reason why. Everything Shaq changed. You got to remember 1992, Shaq is like 1992, 93. This is when two of them, both Magic and Bird, are gone. So it's a new era. It's only Jordan left. Very first game, here's 7'1", 315-pound Shaquille O'Neal leading a fast break. He's doing all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and he's dunking or he's making passes and he's doing stuff. He had like 4 assists in the game when he's, stuff like that, the complete dominance. Here's the deal. The reason I say Wilt is because Wilt was in an era where you didn't do that, but he could anyway. You got to realize there's that there is that picture, that video of Bill Russell jumping over someone to get a layup. He jumped over them in those chucks. And we got to remember, and they played all their games in those chucks. Could you imagine how beat up their feet would be?
Oh, yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So you got to realize Wilt was that way for that reason. You're playing in those tiny little shoes. And I mean, as far as the lining and everything like that, and you're doing it in that kind of stuff. And there were the Nate Thurmans, there were the Abdul-Jabbars late, later, mind you, it was like a couple of years, but there were all of those. And he's able to do that. And they're playing all those minutes. Wilt played 48 and a half minutes a game, including overtime in one season with those shoes. With everything like that, and he was doing different things. Not to mention, he's the all-time world's greatest volleyball player in the Volleyball Hall of Fame. He is all-time on that too, had his own team, did all that kind of stuff. He was known to be able to bench 500 pounds cold with his long arms. It's like, Shaq was dominant for the time and for everything, and he was running everyone over. But you got to realize, Wilt was probably 305, 310 at the most. Shaq got about 380 or 90 all the time. And then you had to keep losing weight as the season went on. Shaq could have been more dominant, but he was lazy. Wilt, mind you, he didn't lift weights, but he was always active. He was always everything. Even toward the end, and you seeing something like that, he was still relatively trim.
Yeah.
In the comparison. Wilt was more dominant because he kept his trim all the way to the end. Shaq just kept gaining weight to try to lose it during the year. He didn't have the same work ethic. He was running off his natural abilities. Could Shaq have been like Wilt? Yes. Imagine 315-pound Shaq 10 years in with Kobe.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Instead of 360-pound Shaq. That's the point. And see, 360-pound Shaq is missing games because he was overweight. They need to have a bad foot, bad knee, bad ankle. You take a couple games off. Wilt did not do that.
No.
So Shaq could have been just like Wilt. He could have had 50, 60-point games at Wilt. Got to remember, he had a 28-point, 15 rebound, 14 block game. Yeah, it's like he had that. He could have done that regularly. He only did it once.
Yeah.
Once. So I mean, it's like or 28, 90. I think it's 15 blocks or something. But something along those lines. He could have done it, but it could have been more. Shaq was just going based off. He was going based off of the high schooler that you would see that was dominant in high school days on the street corner. I once played for this team. It's like I was really good. Then what happened? He doesn't have an answer. I mean, he's unemployed. He's all that. That's the NBA equivalent of what Shaq was, in the fact that he was dominant for his time. How much more could he have been? Mm-hmm. If he would have had Kobe's work ethic, MJ's work ethic, all those work ethics, oh my God, they wouldn't have lost anything. You're talking 315-pound Shaq 10 years in with no injuries.
Yeah.
He's just like, well, I had more. Yeah, remember, all those 28 points, 30 points a game could have been 40 points. No one was stopping him, even the fat Shaq. No one was stopping him. Could have been more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it comes down to. Really, is just the work ethic. You know what I mean? If he had put in the time and the energy, yes, he would be more dominant. But also at the same time, though, I still got to go with Wilt on this one. Shaq made 3. I kind of narrowed it down to defense on a little bit. He did make 3 all defensive second teams. Wilt made 2 defensive teams, but they were both first. You know,
And who was that good?
you know, Jersey's retired by 4 different teams. I mean, come on, you know, like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna go Wilt on this one. Although it is close, it is very close because, you know, let's be real. Both men are on most people's top 5 centers of all time. You know.
Yeah.
Now, whether they have Shaq above Wilt for whatever reason or Wilt above Shaq, everyone's got their own criteria. I mean, but having both of them up there, like, they wouldn't be wrong. You know, these are 2 guys who were dominant both for their eras, and that's why I'm so glad that Will Vogel brought this up. Miles ago, is you have to go by era, because let's face it, there wouldn't be a Shaq without a Wilt to go behind.
Look at remember that video of Wilt shaking Shaq's hand and he enveloped it. That's Shaq. He towered Shaq, and this was at 50 some odd. This is at 57 years old. He towered his shoulders are wider than Shaq, and it's like that's at 57 years old or something, some craziness. You know what I mean? No, maybe over 60 because he was going to be dead a year later. But he was dead a year later, but it was like 60. But I'm like, Wilt was just a monster. But he was also, as much as we talk about all the women he had, as well as we talk about all the fun he had, just his physical shape and everything, he was just more disciplined. And how many times are we ever going to say that there could have been more out of a guy with a, that had multiple, like 28, 30-point years with 14 rebounds like Shaq did? I mean, no one stopped him on defense. No, I mean, anybody that did was always the weak side strip or something like that, or maybe a behind the big block. No one physically, we talked about that with Sabonis in one of our shows. But no one head-to-head stopped. I mean, he just shredded you. It was nothing. But how many times we say that about a guy like Shaq? It could have been more. He could have been a 40-20 guy. Easily, yes. Easily. But I mean, gotta remember, he could have been those. But it's like Dennis Rodman gave him troubles. He was way smaller, but Rodman just knew angles, knew everything. But if Shaq would have worked on little things like that, no one would have gotten him.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree.
And you take you take a guy like Shaq who, was, we've talked about this, before, how he was this larger than life guy. You started seeing him everywhere. You started seeing him in movies and everything. And people actually forget Wilt did the same thing. He was the main antagonist in Conan the Destroyer. And
he made a lot more money than any of Shaq's movies ever did.
Yeah. Yeah,
One movie did more than that.
I mean, to say you acted opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's not bad at all. Just like to say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was opposite Bruce Lee at one point.
Yeah, Abdul-Jabbar was in that Airplane movie too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes. Sure. And Abdul-Jabbar is a legit martial artist.
Yeah.
That was the thing, though. That's the thing, though. Wilt. There's that one thing with Wilt and Wilt and Andre the Giant. You realize that picture did not come out till Andre was dead?
Yeah.
Andre did. Manute Bol wanted to come to Andre because he supposedly Andre was 7'4". He wanted to come there, and Andre would not come out. It was in the Capitol Center. It was a show in the Capitol Center. Manute Bol wanted to come out, and Andre wanted to come out and have a picture, and Andre wouldn't come out because at that time Andre was about 6'11", 7 foot, because he was starting because of his back. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying Andre wouldn't come out, and it was like no one showed that picture of Andre with Wilt truly, as maybe it was in magazines or something, but it wasn't. It did not spread around until it was after his death.
Yeah,
because of the respect for Andre.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, real quick, and we have a few minutes left here before our parting shots. Let's give our 2023 NBA midseason tournament winner predictions and what it would mean for that team going forward. Starting off with George, who do you got?
Well, there's a bit of unfinished business in South Florida, so I got the Miami Heat winning that tournament, which is coming up November and December, I believe. in the NBA. So we got some unfinished business there for Coach Spoelstra and the players. So I'm going to say the Heat are going to win it. I am basing it on nothing other than the fact that I believe they're still hungry, and whatever little incentive it is going to be for those teams and players to do that, which I still think is ridiculous, mid-season, early season tournament, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great.
But I'll go
Great
with the Heat. I'll go with the Heat, guys.
Miami Heat. Yeah, that sounds about right. Also, I think they're gonna if they were to win this tournament, they would springboard it, use it as a springboard to get back to the postseason and maybe a little bit more motivation because, let's face it, they had an excellent run, but they just ran into the better team. The Nuggets were the best team in the NBA. But it just is what it is. They ran into a buzzsaw. But I was swinging over to Jacob. And who do you got for our mid-season tournament winner?
Just to say, Houston is in the finals of the Summer League. Just found out they won.
Yay!
So they're in the. So I'm just giving that to you. I wanted to give that little update. I'm doing a little Scott tonight, just for the updates. No, you want to know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say Orlando, and I'll explain why. It's because I'm giving something like this, kind of like the Summer League. In the fact of Sacramento won the Summer League a year ago, and then they started coming around from it. You got to that kind of deal. And then San Antonio won theirs as they're building, and that was with Becky Hammond as they were building their team. I think this is the thing I think with Orlando. I don't think in some of these things, I think if the Stars want to take a break, I don't think they're going to play in it, or they're going to play in the final. I think and stuff like that. I think Orlando's going to play every one of their guys. Teams like that will play every one of their guys. The worst teams, they don't have a lot of momentum. They're trying to build a team. I think they're going to play all their players. I think a lot of the good teams are not. I think their stars will not be unless they're in the semifinal, they're going to take a break. So I think a team like Orlando, maybe Houston, maybe all those teams are going to have the chance because the worst team's going to play all their players. The stars you're not going to see a lot of Giannis until like semifinals. You're not going to see a lot of LeBron. You're not going to see a lot of definitely not Zion because he never plays anyway. But you're not going to see any. You're not going to see those kind of players. But you will see the teams with not a lot of talent playing the talent they have, and so they're going to win games they would not win in the regular season. So I'm going to say like in Orlando.
That sounds good. I'm going to go with the Houston Rockets for the same reasons that you said. It's going to be emphasis on getting our young guys involved and getting them the experience. Any positive I can probably take from this is that at least it'll give the youngsters more experience. Of course, you also have Fred VanVleet. And speaking of Dylan Brooks, who just got signed to the Houston Rockets. And it would be actually motivating for I'll put it to you like this: and you say Houston just got into the finals in the summer league. If Houston got into the finals of the midseason tournament or won it, and then got into the play-in tournament, and we've had a good season. Okay, considering the fact that the last 2-3 seasons we couldn't get past 20 wins, So as far as the midseason tournament winner, I'm going to go ahead and go with my squad, the Houston Rockets. Dylan Brooks, just shut up and try not to say nothing or touch nothing. Okay, now for our Basketbros parting shots. And I'll start off on this one. So we talked about Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone in WCW. This is my official pitch to AEW that if things go awry in the next 2 years with Zion Williamson, to sign Zion Williamson. It won't be as much effort as on the basketball court, the back and forth and everything like that. He'll come out there for like a match or two, or maybe you could sign him full time. The man is still 7 foot. The man's still 6'7". He probably trimmed down to about 290 now, 280. But still, that's awesome size for somebody that you need in the ring. So, don't let big bad WWE beat you to the punch. If things don't work out for Zion, the bidding war needs to begin for him to officially begin his professional wrestling career.
My parting shot is going to be this one. Christmas Day belongs to the NBA. I'm sick and tired of the NFL now intruding on the NBA's day. What happened to the days when we used to cooperate with each other? Commissioners would cooperate, leagues would cooperate with each other. We always knew that Thanksgiving Day belonged to the NFL. Christmas Day belongs to the NBA. It always has been. 5 games on ESPN, ABC. But now, oh no, the NFL's got to come along and say, no, we're going to have maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 games on Christmas Day. Nonsense. Nonsense, I say. Stop it, and stop it now. Let's return the days when the NBA had their day, which was Christmas Day. For those that want to watch it, I'm not one of them, but there are a lot of fans that do look forward to that on Christmas Day. I do look forward to the NFL on Thanksgiving Day, but I don't like this sharing stuff going on and this conflict going on between the NFL and the NBA. That's my parting shot.
Before going to mine, George, tell us about your book.
My book is called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. It's published by Arcadia Press, and I write for the South Florida Tribune. You can find a copy of the book, the link to the book, at the end of my column on the South Florida Tribune under Motor City Tribune. I'm one of Scott Morganroth's top writers in that publication, and I also encourage you to order a copy of the book. It's $20 from Arcadia, and it's really worth it. If you got anything to do with Detroit and Michigan sports history, you'll love it. Thank you.
Anytime. I just wanted to make sure you got that. I got a little thing. This is not going to be a lot of sports here. I brought up some stuff tonight about JFK, some history with news and stuff. So I'm going to bring something else up. Everybody wants to talk about, I brought up something about basics with how to bring things back in a faster world. Maybe I should write a book. Who knows? But let me bring this part here. You want to bring something, whether it's small town, big town, any of this kind of stuff. I live in a city right now, Alpharetta, Georgia. I have not run over one pothole. And I mean, we have rain, we've had ice, we've had snow, not run over one pothole, not one situation. Construction is efficient, and we get around in minutes, even if there's a line. Everything's efficiently done and run and everything like that. You want to know how to be able to make a proper economy for a small town? That's it. Get the infrastructure up. I'm talking everybody around, anybody who watches the small town, especially the one I grew up with. Get the infrastructure up. When you have really cruddy areas, people don't want to drive on those. Truckers don't want to get on those. They don't want to get to that thing. They don't want to be stepping over potholes and flattening tires. That only helps the tire companies. You want smooth roads where people can go, then they go on those roads and they spend money. The end. Trucks get on there. They're not having to spend money to fix their truck. They are bringing the stuff to us. The end. Fix the infrastructure. Fix all that kind of stuff. Get that. Make that number one on every list for any new mayor, any new governor, any new president. Number one is infrastructure. End of story.
Indeed. And so, with that being said, thanks to everybody who watched Basketbros tonight. Also, as a reminder, hit that like and subscribe button if you are joining us from YouTube. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Check us out on DBTV and Stream TV. Also, check out the South Florida Tribune on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. There's a lot of great material on there. Sports Exchange, Far Out Michigan, 108 Stitches. You know, you name it, they've got it going on over there. And also, check out Let's Talk Sports also on YouTube as well. They got great shows. So, in the last year, we've had mergers and brought in sister networks, and it's been great. So, we've got this whole universe cooking, you know, like Marvel or DC or something like that. I don't know. What's going on is crazy, but it's great. It's madness, and you need to be a part of it. So, for Jacob Christner and our guest, George Eichorn, I am Denzel Snipes. We will see you in 7 days. This is Basketbros.